Welcome, everybody. Today, we are joined by the illustrious, the noble, the noteworthy, the awesome, the mighty Polar Phonic.
Hello.
Okay, that extra sound effect was not needed. But
Yeah, truly.
how are we doing today, Polar?
Quite fine. Haven't done anything absolutely for the studio though.
You're looking like a messiah with your hair. You've been working on your Jesus look, I see. You see the beard.
I'm Jesus himself. Yeah, it's
Wow.
coming through. It's gonna be there
Lionheart's
eventually.
Jesus, everybody. He's here to rescue us with new helmets and windows. Speaking
Yeah,
of,
of
how are the
course.
windows going?
Oh well, it's coming fine. I'm finishing up the Sicilian ones. By finishing, I mean I'm like not even halfway through done with them. I'm actually looking at them right now, but they're coming along fine actually. They're going faster than I expect because most of them are just recolors. They're not even
Well,
unique assets that much.
well, Polar has been working on. He's been single-handedly replacing all the assets in the game with 3D models for about 6 months now. So the only reason the region battles can handle more than 30 people is because of him and Belides doing the replacements. So
Yeah,
you've been around quite a while. You were
yeah, could say that.
you were king of Jerusalem. Been around
Oh, a
different.
long time ago.
Yeah, you have been around different factions. So what are you doing now in Lionhearts as a
Oh
player?
well, as a player, honestly, I'm just more of an advisor role. I'm not doing too much. High Chancellor of the Federation, but you know, I'm probably gonna give that to someone else eventually too, because I'm just not available to play the game too much right now. I'm mostly focusing on developing for the game.
So you're in the Federation. You must be close with Tarask.
Yeah, of course I am.
Have you
Very,
asked
very close.
him why is he too much of a coward to do an interview with me? Have you asked the burning question? Everybody wants to know why Tarask won't do an interview.
um, he's probably just nervous to meet you, of course, with his um how could I say this? He's just very nervous to meet you, of course, in
He's
person.
yeah, I can imagine he's a timid guy, he's a nervous guy.
Very, very timid.
He's going to get cooed with that attitude. He needs to be a little bit
Honestly, yeah.
he needs to riz himself up a little bit. He needs to I mean with the other leaders that have come in here, they've come in with a lot of confidence. A lot of
Well,
confidence.
some have.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say everyone has, but some have. Definitely
Well,
some.
there's one Seljuk dictator I remember that's pretty confident. I won't name
My
I
lions!
won't name names.
We will not name names, but there is a certain one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a certain person that admires a well-known dude. Well,
Yeah.
so what are your thoughts on the recent updates and changes? I don't know how closely you've been paying attention, but we just released a pretty big patch, including some faction changes, balance updates, etc. Did you have a chance to look at that?
I did actually have a chance to look at the honor system. Honestly, I like that actually players have an influence on faction honor. That's actually a very nice change. Balance changes, those are nice. I mean, nothing too special, nothing noteworthy. I don't play the game too much, so I can't really focus on that, nor have I seen it in game. The new helmets I added, of course, they're beautiful. Who will not like them?
The new what?
The new helmets.
Oh yeah, of course. It's so
Yeah.
funny. Nobody like I'll work on an update for 6 months and it'll be something like I'll think it's massive and then I'll release it and then everybody will be like, "But when are the new helmets coming?"
Well,
It's like all people care
it's
about.
hard when the helmets are not just amazing, you know? We
All the
have to
helmets are like I this is, you want to hear my hot take? I'm interviewing you, but you want
Good.
my hot take?
Yeah,
I
sure, sure.
think that the Lionhearts community is so spoiled with helmets and outfits. We've had hundreds of iterations of outfits and helmets, and I know some factions have gotten the short end of the stick there. However, There are so many freaking outfits in the game.
I do agree with that. I mean, it's hard to actually, get them to match. Sometimes there is, valid reasoning. Like actually, Jayus just said that the new Zengid unis don't match up with the helmets, or rather, the new helmets don't match up with the unis.
Right.
That's completely fair. I actually need to get onto that because I was using older unis for some reason. But yeah, I do completely agree with that. That sometimes the community is spoiled with helmets because there's, always new helmets dropping. But especially in the recent time now that I'm actually able to work on helmets instead of weapon skins like I have for the past 6 or so months, I think.
Right.
So I would agree on that, but it's also very nice actually going with the community and talking about helmets because most of them are very very passionate about bringing new faction looks. So I'm passionate about making helmets, and that just correlates, and it's easy to make them like the new assassin helmets that will come in a few updates. I don't know whenever they're rigged because they are finished, completely finished, but they need to be rigged. So it'll take some time.
What we recently had you read all the weapon skins to be PBR models,
Mhm.
and I feel like that's going to help the performance a lot. What's the
Oh, definitely.
besides, redoing windows and stuff, what do you think the biggest impact in the 3D department, which you're currently sort of leading and have been for a
Mhm.
while? What's the next biggest impact you think you could make outside of maybe helmets?
Well, honestly, helmets. Just want to touch on that a bit again. Honestly, helmets don't aren't too unoptimized anymore. They're just some of them just look odd. Like that's the only issue I have with them right now. They're all PBR ready, so they're all optimized. So I think that's not an issue right now. I think the biggest issue would be doors and such little props that are still unfinished because I do still see doors are majorly just not modeled. They're still game parts from
Yeah.
Roblox. So I think that's the biggest issue. And from there, honestly, I don't think there's much 3D improvement we could go through. The only thing we really could go is like making walls and stuff, but even that's, you know,
Maybe some
it'll take some
terrain
time.
changes. A lot of people do 3D terrain, which is actually it looks really, really good.
It's very nice, but it's also a hard task to put that in,
Yeah, and the
especially into
map's really
Roblox.
big. Yeah.
It's huge. I don't think that's, a valid thing. Like we already had the problems with bringing people to use that Blender plugin for houses. That was already a problem. It's not the easiest to use. I had problems with using it. So I don't think that bringing more people into 3D modeling for terrain is a good idea when this is already fine enough. I think that'll just cause us more issues and we won't learn much from it.
Right. Um so as a Fed, it seems
Mhm.
like some of these changes lately, especially with the HRE being vassalized, the wars kind of died down a little bit in the last week.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's good? Do you think the changes to we nerf protectorates quite a lot?
That's perfect. I love that change. That's why I just
Yes.
have to say that.
So do you think this is the beginning of the end of these mega coalitions?
Honestly, Mega Coalition's not by death hand, honestly, because already both sides are not happy to fight. I think the changes we have made in the dev department are great, and they have put a stop to most of the Mega Wars, but I think they'll continue because there's just not enough reason to not do it still, which is sad. This vassalization of HRE and the rest are just temporary. And in honesty, I don't think there's too much peace going on right now. As soon as they can rebel, they will rebel. So I think there's more to be done in the dev department, in my opinion. I
Specifically
mean,
with revolts?
I wouldn't say it's the revolts. I would say it's more that even if you keep even if you keep warring someone, you'll always how do they say this? You'll always be able to jump back up. There's no reason to lose a war right now, except the obvious, and there's no reason to accept a defeat. Like I think I mentioned this a few times in the Gilded, but if we had some mechanic to force actual taking of garrisons and such, and just keeping it that way for a longer time would be a nice idea about how that would be implemented is hard to think of. It's a very hard
Yeah.
problem, actually.
I think actually I might have inadvertently, not entirely inadvertently, but one of the changes I made to power rankings is actually having a really huge effect. I think it's going to become even more massive because now if you don't own your core Chronicle territory, it really screws with your power ranking.
I do like that. I don't think that it should do too much stability though, because then it just involves the factions being in a what is it called? They're just going to be stable all the time if they don't have any other territories. I don't know how to explain this. They're just going to be put
Yeah.
into a deadlock after some time if everyone gets their garrisons back.
Yeah.
Like no one's going to attack each other, and especially now that we changed the garrison resources a bit, with garrison resources being mostly focused on iron. There's not too much fenugreek and such. I think there's not too many reasons to attack garrisons now. I do think garrisons should be, mm, I don't know, they definitely should still have some stability to them in the sense that not every war should just take away all their garrisons in one fell swoop or in one RB even, because
Yeah.
that's a like they can switch very fast even if we did add the cooldowns, the new
Right.
cooldowns from after the 24-hour RPs. But I still think that it changes too much. The I think the majority of the problems do come from the fact that we don't have enough players, and even if we did have more players, the game would just kind of die due to the unoptimization of some parts of the game. So those two issues are very problematic. I do think we could solve the player issue by making the skill trees a bit less easy to, or rather, making the gap between new players and end game users less big through skill trees, because the skill trees do offer a variety of options, especially with all the tools and tiers. It just makes a very big problem to balance, and we can tell that in the current game.
Yeah, I think theoretically what you're saying is right because PvP is so punishing for new players to participate in. I do think though, what's one of the other biggest critiques of Lionheart historically is grind, how long it takes to level up, and not feeling like the level ups are that rewarding. So you fix one problem, you cause another, right? If you make it
Yeah.
so the levels give less damage and stuff and the skill trees aren't as good, then there's less incentive to level up. So I think matchmaking has been useful at least to have people be able to spar and level up that way. So and I think what we really need is more things to do outside of PvP battles so that new players can actually participate in the game in other ways and they
Mhm.
don't have to just go fight in a massive faction battle and get destroyed immediately.
Yeah, that's definitely a big thing now that we have matchmaking. We actually factions often use it to train their troops, which is a nice addition. We have always been asking for a thing that's just an ability to properly train troops, which is a very nice addition.
Yeah.
Even though matchmaking has kind of failed at the start, that is kind of sad. But I do like the fact that it's being used more as a training thing now, both for factions and for players that are
I've
just
been
pilgrims.
surprised that it seems like people play it more than I thought. So
Actually, yeah.
I think the activity of matchmaking relative to the activity of the game is good. Meaning like you wouldn't expect it to be that active because the game's not crazy active right now. So as the game picks up in activity, as we get more players, I could really see matchmaking taking off in correlation. But it doesn't seem like matchmaking itself is the driving force that will get us there because it's not as fun to play with less players. It's more fun to play matchmaking. If you actually get into a 15v15 unranked with 30 players, it's very very fun. And it's hard to get to that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I do agree with that.
yeah,
It really is.
do
Yeah, go
you
ahead.
do you think more things outside of battling and fighting would be good for the
Can you repeat that? I didn't.
Do you think more things to do besides fighting would be good for the game?
definitely, but what that is very hard to say. Whether it's making or is that gonna be some kind of other thing?
We're thinking like
We
hunting, farming, fishing,
I
jobs.
don't think jobs would be a great addition. I think that would be very nice for cities and the economy. I don't think hunting and fishing and such should be a part of doing that because the game's just not centered on that. I think that would just add too much bloat. It would make players who actually want to play the game normally or as it is right now be very just they're going to be punished for playing the game as it is, and which is something I don't agree with.
How so?
Jobs should be an addition. Because I think it's the same problem with grinding. Most people want to just play the game normally. Like in a perfect world, majority of the people in game right now would just want everyone to have steel weapons because it's fair, it's funner, it doesn't one shot the other person. It just feels better. They don't have any incentive to lose or win, or rather, they don't have an incentive to grind. Um, I just don't think adding another thing they would have to focus on because right now there's so much things for a leader, for example, to follow. They have to lead, they have to actually make their weapons, they have to organize their troops, they have to make sure someone gets tonics, gets arrows, gets bolts, gets those weapons, that gets everything. It's just becomes such a mess
Yeah.
of everyone having to do so much and it's just tiring everyone out. By the way, Jayus asked, when is the practice siege mechanic myth promised coming for factions?
I don't remember. Please show the quote where I promised a practice siege mechanic. maybe, maybe I said that in 2019. I don't remember ever promising that.
Well, I don't know.
I think I see what your point is. I do think that uh overall just having systems that are fun to engage with, but in putting it in a positive light rather than being it's like it's a disincentive. If you don't do this you get punished, rather it's like no, this is something fun and additional, and maybe it doesn't even relate to combat, it's just something else you can help with gold or something passively.
Yeah, it's something that should be added as another feature to what already exists in the sense that when they're done with fighting or when they're waiting for another fight, they should be able to do something that's like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And something like, I don't know, sharpen up weapons for other troops, and that will like give 1% bonus to offense, for example, damage to everyone in
Yeah.
that faction. Like it's something that could add up. That's it ties it into faction quests as well. Like
Right.
if enough faction members do that quest, it actually gives them a bonus.
Yeah.
It's similar to banners. I don't know because I do like the fact that we're adding banners, and that would give us the ability to add formations in the future, actual
Yeah.
bonuses for formations, which I do love because the game right now, due to all the rolling and skill trees and everything,
Yeah.
just devolves into 1v1 combat, which I don't like for this kind of genre.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
if
fair.
we didn't have the, like, I don't know how to explain this. Like, similarly, Morda, I don't know if you've played it, still has kill trees and everything and dodging
What
and such,
game?
but it's still Mordhau.
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 Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it still devolves into team battles instead of 1v1s usually, unless you're on a really open field. It will always devolve into team fights,
Yeah.
which I don't know how they got, but I think it's just because it's way slower combat. So I think something, it's a good game to have inspiration from, and I already do think we had a lot of inspiration from it with a lot of things. So
Sure.
I would go that route a bit more. Also, no, actually, never mind, nothing.
Well, somebody asked in the chat, and this was actually something about this week. And you had quite a yap on it. Was
About what?
City Watch.
Oh, yes, yeah, City Watch. I'm sorry, but I can't really defend that because I mean I love City Watch. I wanted to, come back a while ago, multiple different times. I tried to bring it back. I did bring it back. but it's something that I think shouldn't replace the current divisions in KRG. Just, not to repeat everything I said, it just doesn't fit the game, and historically it doesn't fit either. It's just not something that existed.
Yeah.
Like there was a militia, of course, in every city, but it didn't work. No, neither it was called City Watch.
Well, I had the idea several times. Like, I would really like if Lionhearts eventually would decentralize to the point where every city would have its own activity.
I do agree with that. I would like that too.
And there would be its
But
own, it would have its own watch and jail, and then it would be a gameplay loop where you could try to steal something from the stockpile. If you get caught, get thrown in jail or something like that.
I do agree with that, but that would be hard to, manage because as soon as there's not actual guards online, it just devolves completely.
Oh, you would have
Yeah.
to make it automated to an extent with NPCs.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely, definitely. But it's a very touchy topic. I do agree we need police forces. I don't think they're. My point of the whole gap was the division of City Watch shouldn't be in KOJ. Like it shouldn't because it was most people wanted it mostly for the uniforms, not for policing. If it was for policing, I would agree with it completely under a different.
Yeah, I think that it was kind of funny. Old TTC was less active, but you had a sense at Jerusalem was actually like a gameplay loop with City Watch that people would do outside of road battles. So so old TTC for reference. I think you were there. Like
Yeah, it was.
yeah,
It was.
yeah. So basically, it was only road battles, which were like region battles, and they would happen like once a week
Yeah.
or once a day max. Um, and outside of that, the only thing to do was train at your base or go to Jerusalem and harass the city watch, who would like arrest you, put a warrant on you, and then drag you to jail. And that was it. And so people would just hang out at Jerusalem, go to the tavern, and it was a lot of role play there. But also, the city watch had the handcuffs; they could drag you around, they could tie you to a post. There was some interesting dynamics, and the game actually kept active outside of road battle times using that. So it's an interesting
Yeah. Of
idea.
course, it was.
Yeah,
It was just. I think half of the fun of old TTC was the social aspect, and I still stand by that.
yeah,
Because even, if you take away City Watch, you still have everyone hanging out around the arena. You still have scholars trying to kill people. You have KOJ training their men in their base or whoever owns Jerusalem, with anti-crusaders or CS. There was always something happening in Jerusalem,
yeah,
which always derived something. There was always something special, like scholars, not scholars, like assassins being in their bureau. That was very interesting, especially for New City Watch, which just didn't know that it
yeah.
existed, and they just kind of disappeared. It was like, wow, they can teleport. I remember that was my first, thought when I just see them in one part of the city and then just gone without TPing because they're wanted. That was a very nice system, and I think some of it could be transferred to Reforged, but not all of it. Definitely not all of it.
Well,
It
it's
would
a
need to be
different
reformed.
game. I mean, it's
Of course, it's not the same type
it's
of game even.
an MMO, right? So there's gonna be like just the idea of handcuffing somebody. I do think I made the palace PvP enabled on purpose. I kind of wanted that element where there's a little
Definitely,
bit
yeah.
of risk, and it is difficult though when we had that coronation that was a disaster at Jaffa King, and
Yeah.
there was no PvP enabled. There was PvP enabled in the accident bug, and the whole thing was a mess. And there was no way to actually prevent somebody from coming in and sabotaging the whole thing because they can just jump over your shields. They can just do whatever you want. So I feel like city owners outside of having maybe instead of having a city watch for Jerusalem, just um make a default watch for every city or that the faction supplies that
That
owns
was my
it,
idea.
and they get handcuffs or something. They can just enforce it when they feel like it for specifically events. So if they're hosting an event or something, there's a way you can drag somebody away and throw them in jail, and they can't in that server, and then they can't just like keep doing nonsense.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I do think there needs to be something. I mean, a big problem I have had with combat in general until now is that you can just jump over shields or you can go around shields. There is actually nothing to prevent you at all from just going around the shield people, which is stupid in my opinion. If you did that in real life, you just get sliced open. You just can't do
Yeah.
that. Which is the reason why formations can't happen right now under any circumstance. They just can't. And also Woot's arrows, folded arrows, Damascus arrows. It just makes it so that you can't do these things at all. And if you went out as a leader, you just get shot with an arrow unless you had like 16 guards on you with shields, which is, kind of the first defeats the purpose of like, oh, my king doesn't, is courageous. He doesn't care about that.
Right.
He doesn't think the scholars could get to him.
Right. I do
Which is,
think yeah, the formation point is interesting. I think that well, did you see we had a jump stamina?
yeah, I love that. I love that absolutely. I
So
wouldn't even allow
that's
jumping.
really controversial.
Well, I mean, personally, if it was me, I mean, I love parkour. I would love more park. I would add more parkour elements if I could to the game,
Yeah.
but I don't think it deserves to be in combat at all, unless it's like we added something that gives the dagger like a ability to do a hidden blade movement, which still wouldn't be more of a part. It would have to be if with fall damage, of course. I love parkour, but I don't think it serves to be in combat. It should definitely be something that aids you to go around people, avoid combat at all,
Yeah,
which is why
I think the jumping stand hard because one of the issues is combat and jump around. So if you don't let it charge stamina outside of combat, it could be abused. Somebody can just dodge your attacks and just jump around instantly around a flag or something.
yeah,
But it also does seem to still be limiting parkour. It's quite annoying. The addition of it is quite annoying outside of combat. I like the addition of it in combat, and I made the change, so um but it's quite annoying outside of combat. Um I don't really know of a good
yeah.
solution for that yet that could fix the bunny hopping issue, but
Honestly, inside, I mean, during road battles and such, I would just keep it as is right now. But like whenever it's a normal game,
that's a good
like
idea.
I would just remove most of the most of the stamina,
Well,
of
you could
course,
just
unless
make
you're
it
in
not
combat.
cost stamina outside of combat so you could still parkour.
I wouldn't do that personally because you could still have places where you like jump around the flag for example. Like a lot of times when you jump around the flag, you just don't.
But I'm saying only do that outside of battles.
Oh, then yeah, I do agree with that
Yeah,
completely. Then
because
yeah,
the stamina cost outside that is already basically as low as it can be.
yeah,
It's super
pretty much.
low for a jump outside of combat, but it's still enough that it's like when you're parkouring, it seems to be a hindrance. So, um, yeah, I think that could be a good solution. Should write that down.
Yeah, whoever did this, please then scribe that down. I mean, there's a bunch of these issues that could be probably easily fixed. I mean, like this kind of wouldn't be so easily fixed.
Right,
It would need some changing of the code. But most
right,
of the issues we have in the game right now are mostly up to variables that are simply changed. Like, of course, they need to be tested out, balanced. It's not
sure.
that easy, of course. But there's a lot of things we can do. I don't know. I do really want to see this game become a more open thing, more popular like Napoleonic Wars, because
Yeah,
that kind of game in this setting would be amazing and would just, would actually get a lot of people in. It wouldn't just
sure.
be, it would get a lot of people per battle. Because one of their factions, I mean, one of their divisions rallies as much as some of our factions, which is insane.
Yeah,
Oh, very insane.
I think that I think that's probably a good point, that there are comparables in Roblox that have a lot of players. I mean, they don't have the MMO elements, which is noted, and like, so I think Lionhearts has a higher overall potential than them, but obviously right now it's lower. So
Definitely.
getting to that point, I would think is a huge goal of ours, to just take a stepping stone to the next step. Speaking of that, you've been in the studio for quite some time. What's been your experience being a game developer for Lionhearts as opposed to a player, specifically under the studio?
It's definitely interesting. I have learned a lot of things, and while I've been developing for 4 years now, yeah, it's been 4 years now,
Yeah.
Jesus, on and off, of course. I mean, it definitely gives you insight into what can be done and what can't be done. It gives me more sense for both sides. I can understand both sides of the topic, whether it's the players or the developers, because I do like to side with players and developers a lot of the time. I like to be that bridge between, even though it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it. Um, it's an interesting thing, though. I don't think game design is for everyone. That's for sure. It's a very hard and very charged topic. It needs time to go through someone. It needs time to actually test everything out. It's
Yeah.
not as simple as putting in some variables, putting in some code, and boom, I'm done. Even 3D modeling, which is, relatively simple in the sense that you just make something and that gets added in. You still need some sense in that, where to place this asset. It's not as simple as that. You
Yeah.
actually need proper map design to have a fun map. Lord knows there's some really badly, they look, some maps look very nice, but they're very OP for one side, or they're just not fun for either side, which is sad. It can be always done better. I also think that if sieges were more fun, I think that would be a big stepping stone, along with road battles, of course. Road battles should be priority all the time.
Well, I kind of feel like sieges and battles are the only thing people like you who have been playing for years even get on to do. You've maxed out your weapon. It's like, I'm just going to go and play. If there's a big war, I'll come on. Right? Where I feel like the addition of farming, property updates, feudal system, how, better housing decorations, jobs, then I might actually feel like just playing just to play, and having, it's a funny example, but Bloxburg, for example, they have a huge, brilliant house customization thing, and that keeps people engaged a lot. And, just having an element of that in Lionhearts would connect. Now it feels more personal. It feels more like an MMO where I actually have my own world. I have my own house, and I'm progressing it aesthetically rather than just waiting for the next battle.
Yeah, that is a big thing. I mean, I personally don't even get on to road battles. Just see most of the fun, honestly, in just doing diplomacy. I think that's a very big thing in the game. I think that's very overall managing and being a diplomatic sort of person.
Yeah.
But I would definitely hop on if first, I mean, someone said this, Luke Master, yeah. He said that sieges being actual sieges would be nice. Honestly, I
Yeah,
think
that's
that's
true. That's true.
sieges are just battles,
Yeah,
just
I agree
expanded.
with that. And the reasoning behind that from a development perspective is we've always wanted to do it, and we've even had some code done on it, but the amount of work to do it the way we want to do it is pretty colossal. So it's never been a good time for us to just be like, okay, let's do this now. Because I agree with it, but at the same time, Siege is already maxed out at a couple hundred players. And
So I would say for less for some
yeah, but like
Magda dies.
the max is 200. The max. And so maybe adding siege weapons makes it so every siege has 200 players. That's great, but that's not going to fix a wider activity issue. Right?
I do agree with that.
It's going to improve some elements of battling and stuff, and it's going to be exciting, which is why the system I'm proposing would be deployables, which require a huge collaborative effort prior to, in order to get, like, you actually have to get the materials to build a siege tower prior to the siege, rather than just immediately having it, and that way it actually gives you something to do as a group.
I do like that idea. I think for starters, though, I don't think it needs to be resource based. I think it would just be fun for some players to be able to build siege towers and have to defend them from, I don't know, whoever gets out of, like, when we had horses, cavalry could go out and just destroy all the siege towers. That's a very nice idea. It doesn't require resources. As soon as we redo horses, it will be a very nice thing to add,
Yeah.
actually. You wouldn't think sieges and horses would go together, but historically they're always used whenever you need someone to destroy siege towers. You would send a scout to destroy, siege towers with horses. It's not something that's not done in history. It's a
Yeah.
very good thing. And I
Well,
do
I
think we should start I think we should definitely start with sieges, like as soon
yeah.
as possible, is removing parkour from them mostly, like to actually get onto the walls and add to just deployable ladders. I
That's
think
what
that's a
I would
perfect
do.
thing.
I mean, if we add siege weapons, I would, you have to break through the walls to get in, or
I would genuinely start with just adding ladders that only like HRs could place, and then everyone else would have to put them up and remove all the parkour to get into the walls. And I think that's just a perfect change. It would actually make different classes usable. It will make sense for different classes. It would just all around be a nice change, I think.
yeah, I agree. I agree. You mentioned the difference between what people think development is versus like how challenging it is actually. Do you feel
Yeah.
like that's a big issue with the community where, well, why don't you just turn on the siege weapons button myth, right? Why don't you just flip the
Oh yeah, no,
switch?
definitely. Because I mean, personally, I just had big problem with that. Like, it's not as easy to just add uh helmets to the game as I thought it would be. Like, first I started out, oh, I just model it, and then oh, I have to texture it, and then it becomes, oh, I have to rig it, I have to check for all these variables, and then it becomes, oh well, I actually have to add it into the database. Oh, I have to actually check whether it's into the database. I have to upload it. I have to publish it to test. It's a very
And then
long
QA needs to
process.
test it, and then it needs to be pushed to live, and
Push to live, which
yeah,
is also one other huge thing.
yeah. So
It's a
it's a huge
it's a long
process, and
process.
that's actually, helmets are not easy to add, but compared to code, I mean, code has so much more breakable potential.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So it is a big challenge for sure, and I definitely agree with you. I think you're right on about that, honestly. And yeah, deadline is deadline saying developing so easy.
It
Uh,
is so real.
yeah,
No, I do love developing. Like, that's my career of choice in the future. I actually do want to be a game developer in the future, if God allows it, of course. Um, Outside of TTC, because I just love doing it. It's a very fun thing, but it's very hard. It's not
yeah.
as easy.
I mean, it's a passion. I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't, but
Definitely.
it's not something that
It's
to the
not for
faint of
everybody.
heart. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
difficult.
no.
Um,
It's very difficult. It's not just, as someone said, bro coding is just typing a bunch of letters and then boom, you got a game. I
yeah,
mean,
it's very
ever
difficult.
since I started programming, in school and stuff, because I do go to a special course for that in school, it's all based around that. I just understand, oh my god, this is so much more complicated than I expected, especially when it gets into the nitty gritty of how computers work. It just becomes a pain.
Yeah, I think.
Let me give me a second. I
Yeah, go
just gotta
ahead.
go grab my charger from my laptop, so I'll be back in like a
Yeah,
minute.
sure. We'll take a brief pause. Are you ready to resume?
Yeah, I'm ready to resume.
Okay, we're back. Very brief pause. Well,
Very, very brief.
where were we?
Where were we on? Helmets, yeah, developing, all that stuff.
Well,
Very not easy.
what do you see? Where do you see your? Is this something you want to keep working on and helping with into the future, or is this something that you want to move on from eventually?
You mean
Lionhearts.
Lionhearts?
Yeah.
Oh no, Lionhearts. I mean, first off, they will always hold a very big place in my heart, of course. If that's that's non-negotiable. It will always be there, as far as I'm concerned. I do think that I'll stay for a while though. I do want to keep going because this, both as a job and as a I don't know how to explain it, as just fun entertainment is
Yeah.
fun for me. I enjoy it. So I don't have a problem with going through with it. So I probably will stay for at least a couple more years, if TTCO lasts that long, of course.
Yeah. Well, is it ever when you? I mean, somebody you've put a lot of time into this game. When you go to the front page and you see the quality, I don't want to disparage anybody specifically, but you see the quality of some of these games that are getting many, many more players than Lionhearts. Is that discouraging to you?
Discouraging for Lionhearts? Not really, honestly, because I do see potential in this game. Of course, potential doesn't equal something that will happen. So I do think TTC can help, but it definitely discourages me from. It's not just. I definitely, if I ever do start game programming on my own and game design on my own, it will be, discouraging to see all that. Mainly because not because of the quality of the game. Of course, there's a lot of good games up on the front page on the Roblox as a whole. Mostly because it's just up to chance whether your game gets up there or whether you actually have an interesting game loop. Like some people might think your game loop is very bad, and some might think you have an amazing game loop. It's up to the player, not up to you.
Yeah. And do you have a game on Roblox that you think is comparable to Lionheart?
Mm, honestly, no, not anymore. I mean, a couple of years ago, TTC, I would have said Citra Maria, but that's, we're a far cry from that. Honestly, no, I mean, all the games that are like medieval and that stuff, which have a community, are always the same type. You have a map and always the same field map where you have always the same gear, and it's just, you know, devs choose your battles, etc. It's just not fun. I don't see anything comparable to TTC currently, no.
And what is the potential for Lionhearts if we achieve everything on the development end that we want to? What is the potential?
Mm, honestly, I don't know. There's definitely big potential, but I think some things do need to change development-wise. Like some choices of what is chosen to, I mean, some priority of some stuff needs to be changed, definitely. But I think like there's a good chance this game could have, 500 people battles eventually when Roblox allows it and when we actually get to that point.
Yeah,
It's a possibility, definitely, I do think.
great. Well, what do you want to say to all your fans out there? All the
Mm,
Polarphonic fans. What's your message for your followers?
let me think. Stop asking me to change your game code or database stuff, honestly. Honestly, that's my one thing.
Relatable. And don't ask me either.
No, no, no. Ask Myth, spam him all the time. Trust me.
Thank you very much for joining me. That was great, man. I hope you I wish you luck. I don't want to take up too much of your time because I need those windows done.
No one said I'll do them right now. No one's
All right,
just
man.
kidding. All right. So yeah, man. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
having me.
thank
It
you for
was fun. Very fun.
all right,
All right.
guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay. That was Polarphonic, buddy. That was Polarphonic. And that was a great interview. I'm going to just do a giveaway to good people. Weapon skin. Now, get in while you can. All right, who's going to win? Who's going to win? Winner is Sir Kaiser Gaming. Not a more deserving person. Weapon skin of your choice. We interviewed Polarphonic. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Great stream. See you next time.